Hello and welcome to today's Facebook Live. Today I'm talking about why a tutor isn't necessarily the answer to your child's study and revision problems. My name is Lucy Parsons and I'm an academic coach. I am also the founder of Life More Extraordinary Academic Coaching, where we equip families, both parents and students, with the study skills, habits and mindset to survive, not only survive in the GCSE and A-Level years, but to thrive and really reach their academic potential. So thank you for being here if you're watching live. If you are, give this a like and say hello to me in the chat because I'm really pleased to see you. And if you're watching later, please do the same. So, a lot of parents, when they see their child struggling at school, will immediately think tutor, or they might also think work harder. Those are the two kind of typical solutions to the problems of not doing as well at school as they could be that I see amongst parents. But particularly the tutoring, well, both of them. I've addressed the working harder problem a couple of weeks ago in a previous Facebook Live. But the tutor solution isn't always the right solution. And in today's live, I'm going to talk through why that is the case. And if a tutor isn't the right solution, and it definitely is for some people, what you can do instead. Okay, so we're going to think about some typical problems that GCSE and A-Level students experience and why they experience those problems. Then we're going to talk about how to tell whether a tutor is the right solution for your child. And if it isn't the right solution, then what you can do instead. So firstly, let's talk about those typical problems. So firstly, many students feel overwhelmed by the amount of content that they have to cover for their GCSEs and A-Levels and the amount of work that they have to do. Now, this stems from two places. Firstly, from 2017, the GCSE and A-Level syllabuses started to change, and this made them basically harder. There's more content, it's higher level content. Students are expected to know and understand more than they were prior to 2017. So this has definitely upped the amount that students have to cover and revise, know and understand for their exams. But there's another aspect to this which is much longer term than that, and that is the systematic lack of teaching of study skills in schools. And those two things combined, the harder syllabuses and the lack of study skills teaching, means that students basically aren't equipped to cope with what they're dished up in terms of the curriculum, what they need to cover and how much work they need to do. So give me a number 1 in the chat if you think your child is affected by that particular problem, basically being overwhelmed by the amount of content and they have to cover and the amount of work they have to do. The second thing is not knowing how to revise effectively. So many students will find that their schools focus much more on teaching content than they do on teaching the skills to absorb and learn that content. And time is limited in the school year and in the 2 years that people are studying for GCSEs or A-Levels, but it's a definite problem that students don't have the revision skills, and when they're told to revise, they just basically don't know how to approach that. So that is a big problem. The third typical problem that I see students facing is them struggling to understand specific topics and subjects. So I remember when I was at school, maths was the hardest subject I did. I struggled with aspects of French, like the grammar, and physics. Like, there was one module in particular, electricity and magnetism, that, I mean, my daughter brought that home the other day from school, and I was like, don't talk to me about that, it just brings back bad memories. So it's entirely normal to have these areas that we struggle with and we find more difficult. And so that's entirely normal for young people. So if you think your child is struggling with that, please give me a 3 in the chat. So that is struggling to understand specific topics and subjects. The 4th thing is lacking in motivation. So this is the 4th typical problem that GCSE and A-Level students suffer from. And this comes in various different forms, like lack of motivation isn't always for the same reason. So some students really struggle to connect with their why for doing the work and for engaging with their studies. For other students, school hasn't been a happy place for them, and that creates a barrier to engaging with their studies. Other students can't envisage their future. They can't envision what they want to do in the future and connect what they're doing now with what they might want to do in the future. Some students don't see the relevance of what they're doing, and this came up quite strongly yesterday evening when I was doing a coaching call for the Extraordinaries Club. We were talking about different subjects, and many students were saying, I just don't see the point. I don't see how I'm going to use some of the things that I'm being taught. And that's a big stumbling block for many students. And then there's the old chestnut of teen life. So gaming, social media, being with friends, romantic relationships, all that kind of thing that is a major distraction. It's also an important part of growing up, but it can be a major distraction that really reduces motivation around their education. So if your child has been lacking in motivation, give me a 4 in the comments. And then the final one, the final typical problem I'd like to talk about today is difficulty managing time and attention. Now, I know this has come up as a real problem area for many students. They just don't have the life experience or the kind of executive functioning skills to actually manage their time effectively. And then on top of that, we have all the distractions of modern life, and they find it really difficult to resist all that kind of thing. I know I do as well, but their brains are a lot more malleable than our adult brains, and it's really hard for them to say no to all that kind of thing. So those are the typical problems, 5 typical problems that I see students struggling with. Just to recap, they're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of work and content, not knowing how to revise effectively, struggling to understand specific topics and subjects, lacking in motivation, and finally, difficulty managing time and attention. So thinking about those as some of the key problems that students face, we ask the question, is a tutor the right solution for your child? Now, out of those 5 solutions, the tutor is the right solution if your child is really struggling with a specific topic or a specific subject, or maybe a couple of subjects, okay? And that's because a tutor can bring in their subject specialism, their, really great knowledge, and really help your child to get on top of that topic or that subject. It can also be helpful to get a tutor if your child is struggling with motivation in a particular subject, and having that expert who has that real kind of enthusiasm and belief in the subject that they teach can really help a child to find their way into that subject and find an enjoyment and love for that subject that motivates them to study. But if your child is struggling with any of the other problems, such as feeling overwhelmed, not knowing how to revise, lacking motivation, and difficulty managing their time and attention, that's when a tutor may not be the most suitable solution for them. And this is because tutors don't directly teach things like study skills. And my experience, because I've worked as a tutor, is that many tutees, once they have a tutor, they seem to resign responsibility for that particular subject to the tutor. So I've had tutees who just have made no effort to learn things like their key terms, so they actually know the language of the subject that they're studying, or they just rely on you to come in and pick up the pieces, when actually it wouldn't take that much to just pick up a book and read through what they need to read through to understand it better. And in my experience, the biggest indicator of academic success is that students themselves taking personal responsibility for their outcomes, for their grades. And I just often see the solution of a tutor, and I've seen several parents also just using it as a way to make their child do the work. It's like having a babysitter almost, to kind of sit their child with so that they actually do something. But it's not really addressing the root cause of some of the typical, well, many of the typical problems that our young people face when they're studying for their GCSEs and A-Levels. If any of this rings true for you, or if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. So just, if you agree, say agree. If you disagree, say disagree. And, maybe if you'd like to, you can explain yourself in the comments and we can talk about that. Okay, so what would your child benefit more from instead if a tutor isn't the right solution? So basically, if they haven't just got one or two subjects or topics which are a difficulty, there's a wider problem across more subjects than that. So if your child is looking for help with revision overwhelm, not knowing how to revise effectively, increasing their motivation and managing their time and attention, then academic coaching is something that I truly believe will help them, because it will give them effective revision skills. It will help them develop time planning techniques. It will help them work with distractions so that they become less of a problem. It helps them with motivation strategies and how to manage exams in a calm and healthy way. And I've seen this over and over again. And I was really pleased to see the other day, one of my former clients, who was a mum and her year 11 daughter, who were members of the Extraordinaries Club last year. She wrote me an email, and I just want to read this out. She said, "The club is great value for money." The club is the Extraordinaries Club, where I work with people to teach these skills, so basically academic coaching. So she says, "The club is great value for money, far less than a tutor who would only cover one subject and not provide the revision hints and tips, individual subject best practice, and the motivation needed to push through the final year. Despite everything thrown at us in year 11, pandemic, homeschooling, missed topics, we survived the year relatively unscathed, and with the work put in using the resources in the Extraordinaries Club, we managed to get my daughter through with a good set of grades, enabling her to take her chosen A-Levels." So I firmly believe that tutoring is a really, really helpful thing for some students. If they have that problem area, if they have that thing that they really need an expert to help them to dive deep and really understand better. But the kind of widespread systematic problems that I see GCSE and A-Level students facing at this time, I know that the study skills that we teach to the people in the Extraordinaries Club and through one-to-one academic coaching are the solution to that problem. So I'd love to hear in the comments what you think about this. Do you think a tutor is right for your child? If so, that's great. Go ahead, get them a tutor. Or do you think they need to develop the kind of study and revision skills that I've been talking about today? I really hope you found this helpful and thought-provoking, and it helps you move towards the right solution for your child, because education is so precious and we want them to make the most of their opportunities. If you found this helpful, please give the video a like or a heart if you really liked it. And if you want more help and you want to stay in touch, then please do sign up for my mailing list, and you'll get this free download called 7 Top Tips to help your child reach their academic potential. And I'll be putting the link for that in the comments above this video as soon as I have finished, or below, depending on where you're watching it. So thank you so much for watching, and if you found this video useful, please give it a like or a heart. Take care and see you soon. Bye bye.